So once again, greetings to everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you all join us today. My name is Larry Ward. I'm the Vice President for Learner Success and the Dean of Campus Life at Babson College. And it is my pleasure to welcome undergraduate students and families here to this presidential forum on our reopening plan. We're also, for the first time, welcoming new students, new undergraduate students and families to this. So we're pleased to have the entire family together. I'm also pleased today to be joined by President Steve Spinelli and several colleagues who will provide key insight into our fall reopening plan because they are the co-authors of that plan. Today's panel includes Dr. Ken Matsuno, Dean of the College, Tracy Reza, Associate Dean, Dr. Ryan Travia, Associate Dean for Wellness, Josh Peacock, Director of Residence Education, and Lauren Ramito, Senior Director of the Glavin Office of International Education. Just about 2 weeks ago, we released our fall reopening plan called Babson Together. And I know many of you have reviewed that plan and have a number of questions about various aspects. And we've invited you to share your questions in advance, and thankfully you have. For the next hour, we've shaped this session to address many of your questions about key areas of the student experience: academic, student life, residential experience, health, safety, and wellness, and international student perspectives. Before introducing Dr. Spinelli, I want to take just a few moments to share some thoughts of my own and help to frame this conversation. You know, for the past 4.5 months, we've evaluated just about every aspect of our campus and college operations through the lens of this pandemic. We've spent countless hours and a significant amount of money preparing to welcome you all back to campus safely. We've carefully developed a comprehensive plan and continue to make adjustments almost in real time based on your feedback, on state and federal guidance, and on new information. But for as much thought and time that we've spent talking about how you will return and what it might look like, perhaps we haven't spent as much time on emphasizing why you should return. Why does it matter? Why should you return, or why, as a new student, should you begin on campus this fall? What we've learned since the middle of March is that the COVID pandemic has significantly affected college students' emotional health and well-being, albeit in different ways. We know from studies and our own experience that 80% of you have said that this pandemic has affected your well-being negatively. More than 75% have said maintaining a routine has been difficult. And better than 70% of college students have said they've struggled to get enough physical activity. 6 out of 10 college students find it challenging to stay connected with others and feel really isolated. Students are the lifeblood of a college, and we know that your connections to each other, to your faculty, and to this community are an essential part of your growth, your development, your education, and your sense of place in this world. And so the most important thing that we as college leaders, both in the short term and the long term, can be thinking about, according to you all, is that we support you academically within and beyond the classroom, that we provide more mental and emotional health resources, that we help build your soft and professional skills and provide opportunities for social connection. We believe that matters. And that's why we believe a comprehensive, safe, and thoughtful approach to reopening our campus matters. Just about every public health and science expert believes that this pandemic, in some shape or form, will be with us for some time. There is no magic timeline. Not September, not January, not next March. We have a responsibility to begin our way back and our journey forward. Together, we will learn some things. We'll make appropriate adjustments. We'll continue to refine our approach. And we know a lot more about the virus today. We know a lot more about virtual learning. We know a lot more about safe operations today than we did last spring. Importantly, a return to campus right now may not be possible or recommended or the right decision for every member of this community. That's true of some students, some faculty, and some of our staff. And that's why we've provided flexibility. Lastly, let me say that all of the measures that you've read about in the plan and that you'll hear about today are not simply designed to bring us together safely. They are intended to keep us together. It will take all of us, individually and collectively, to be successful. For our newest students and our returning students, I should say, you have a significant role to play in keeping yourself and your classmates safe. A face covering, washing hands, maintaining social distance are simple and remarkably effective at controlling this virus. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary individual effort and leadership. This is our time. Today you will hear a lot more about the plan, and it's my pleasure to introduce President Spinelli, who will give you an overview of how the college is rising to this truly unique moment in higher education and in our lives. Dr. Spinelli? Make sure you're unmuted, Dr. Spinelli.
Thank you. Dean Ward is always helping me, always there to be supportive, and he's been a fabulous partner in this. And it's been a long and intense spring and summer, and frankly, I just miss you. I'm anxious for more interaction. I'm anxious for an elevated pace of learning. You know, when we announced the closure of the campus on March 10th, I stayed awake all night, continually reviewing the decision-making process and asking about consequences. By dawn, I had started mapping the plan for the future. And that plan included two guiding principles. First, the health and safety of our community. Second, provide academic continuity for our students. Since that decision, we've invested heavily in the guiding principles. As I'm sure you know, and as the Dean has told you, we published our 26-page plan for reopening, created by a team of Babson leaders, world-class external health experts, a collaboration of Boston area colleges and universities, and governmental interface. You'll hear a lot today about PPE, highly elevated cleaning protocols, testing, reporting, monitoring, and tracing regimens. The physical plant has been reshaped to de-densify housing, classrooms, and common space. Meal preparation and planning and access has been carefully adjusted. Health services and quarantine processes have been developed. Our pledge to provide academic continuity has been heavily funded with new technology, exceptional teacher training to not only deliver better online, but to deliver better hybrid and face-to-face in much more sophisticated ways. The faculty have immersed themselves in curriculum enhancement and special programming. Our Vice President of Academic Life, Dean Matsuno, has done an exceptional job of bringing the faculty together in this cause of enhancing the academic experience. The centers and institutes have refined their programming and experiences and events to offer both the best of the physical and virtual worlds. Much of our advancement in the curriculum and teaching methods will live long beyond the pandemic and continue to enhance the Babson brand. Academic continuity has become increased academic excellence. Listen, Babson students have permission to think big because they are the ones who use creativity, smart risk-taking, and adaptability to blueprint their dreams. We are creating entrepreneurial leaders to have the tools and the mindsets to thrive in uncertainty and to conquer the unknown. Does that sound a lot like what we are going through today? That's the kind of environment that you are training your minds and your leadership capabilities to deliver. That permission will advance you in ways that I believe will bring this community together in amazing ways. What ultimately connects the people of Babson, the students, the faculty, the alums, the parents, and industry, is an unwavering desire to advance themselves in the world. In our hearts, Babson people are action people. I think the Babson brand and the value of your degree will ultimately be enhanced because of this experience. I'm not saying it will be what you have come to expect. It is rapidly changing, and it will provide the next normal. change is now a way of life. As entrepreneurs, that is where we make our mark. That is where the Babson brand grows and enhances, and where you are going to provide value as leaders. I am excited about the fall. I'm not promising that I know exactly what the future holds, and nobody can, but we are prepared to welcome you home and have a great education. Dean Ward.
Thanks, President Spinelli. Now I want to, before I introduce Dr. Matsuno, I do want to give you a sense of, I know that we received well over 50 questions from you all, and each of our panelists will address those questions. And so hopefully you should hear, at least thematically, many of the questions that you all have submitted. Dr. Ken Matsuno is our Dean of the College. This is a newly formed role for Babson, and as such, he is the Chief Academic Officer at the college. Dr. Matsuno?
Thank you. Please call me Ken. My name is Ken Matsuno. I'm the Dean of the college. As you can tell, I don't carry Eastern Massachusetts accents, but I have been at Babson for the last 24 years. So I know Babson and want to talk about the investments we have been making this spring and summer on two fronts, faculty and technology. First, faculty preparation. We have 200 full-time faculty members, and this summer, nearly all faculty members, 94% of them to be precise, participated in a 2-week training program for online and hybrid teaching. Some of us took it more than twice. In fact, this is the third session right now. The training program has enrolled a total of 276 faculty and staff members across 3 2-week sessions and beginning on June 8th. I understand that many schools, we are not the only college and universities, but many schools offer some kind of training programs to their faculty. That is true. But I have never heard of any schools where 94% of their faculty participating in the training program like us. It's not only about the participation rate I'm bragging about. Our program is really superb. Why? Because we designed a training program by using the feedback from the faculty teaching experience survey from the spring. As you know, we have made an emergency transition in March from face-to-face to online teaching. Based on those results, we put the highest priority on online learning pedagogy and the course design and technology skills. Not only the faculty, but we listen to the student learning experience survey results as well. We learn a lot from the students. They are the other end of the two-way learning experience. Some of the suggestions we received was about the ratio of synchronous and asynchronous materials, use of virtual office hours, discussion groups, and formats of quizzes and exams and so forth. And those are all part of the new lineup of the courses that we are going to offer in fall, whether that is hybrid or online. So we are in the session 3 of the training program now, but we are also getting ready to teach inside the classrooms. We are really getting excited about coming back to the physical classroom. So we will have inspection tours of classroom environments and setups very soon, and we will also do practice runs. We do practice runs of the teaching in the classes. The classes this fall are going to be different from the emergency escape that we did in spring 2020. So we are prepared to teach the courses that are redesigned from the ground up. So whether the course is delivered in hybrid or fully online format. Very briefly on investments in technology. Nothing comes free, and we made a significant investments, to be very honest with you. We made approximately $3 million investments in technology updates and improvement. We have got new big screen monitors, new and additional microphones, and those cameras that creepily follow you and focus on whoever is speaking. We got those. All in all, our faculty are very excited to meet the students again in the fall. But please remember one important difference between Babson and other schools that you may know. That is, the concept of learning at Babson is really based on the idea of collaborative engagement by the students and faculty. In other words, learning is not something that the faculty give to the students. Instead, it's something that both faculty and students contribute and learn from each other and together. So that's the attitude that we are embracing. And I want you to embrace that idea as well. That's the Babson way. Thank you for listening, and we are looking forward to seeing you on beautiful campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Now I want to turn it over to Associate Dean for Undergraduate Operations, Administration, I should say, Tracy Reza. Tracy, I know you received a number of questions about the academic experience. I wonder if you might walk us through some of those questions and answers.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Larry. And good afternoon, students, parents, and family members. I really appreciate this opportunity to be with you today and to help answer questions pertaining to the academic experience this fall. Your questions were very thoughtful, and it was actually interesting to see how practical you're really thinking about what it's going to look like to get into the classroom, what will be expected of you. So I do really appreciate those questions. There was some overlap as well, so I'm going to sort of paraphrase and provide the best answer that I hope will be helpful to you. So the first set of questions that I'm going to address really do involve the faculty expectations for you. A number of you asked about what would be expected in terms of attendance, particularly for online classes. And part of this question is whether or not all class sessions will be recorded. And thus you're thinking about, will you have the opportunity to watch the recordings at your convenience and not necessarily at the scheduled class time? And the answer is it will vary. And it will vary whether or not you are enrolled in a hybrid or an online class. As our returning students know, professors outline their attendance and class participation expectations in the course syllabus, and they go over it with you on the first day of class. There's a very good chance that your professors will be taking attendance in these classes, and so you will be expected to participate in the class sessions regardless of the time zone you're in, and even if the session is being recorded. So in this case, if you are currently registered for a class that's scheduled at a time that would be challenging for you to attend, you could email the professor and ask about the attendance policies. And then depending on what you learn, you may want to consider looking again at the course options and perhaps change to another section of the same course or another course that works better for your overall schedule. We do expect, given that registration is going to be opening again for the returning students, I know many of the first years are in registration right now, this will be an iterative process. And of course, as you know, I hope you know, your class deans are available to help you through this. Now, this is also true for those of you who registered and found that you were in a new time block. You may find yourself in a course that's now much earlier than you originally planned or much later. And if you know, again, it will be a challenge for you to participate, I would encourage you to consider choosing another section or course for the fall. You want to set yourself up for success, and you know yourself. If you aren't an early morning person, don't count on classes being recorded for you to listen to later in the day, as that may or may not be what your professor has planned for the design and delivery of the course. Another question related to attendance was from a student who's planning to live off campus, but was asking if that means they have to take all of their classes online. And the answer to this question is no. You don't have to take hybrid classes online if you live off campus. If you're coming back to Babson, but you plan to live off campus and in the area, we would expect you to attend the hybrid classes in person. In fact, you can expect that sometime before the first week of classes, your professors will be reaching out to you. That is, those professors that are teaching the hybrid classes. And they're going to be asking you if you plan to participate in person or online. This is so that they can get a sense of how many students living on campus or in the area plan to attend in person. This number is so important as they consider how to manage the numbers in the de-densified classrooms with students now seated 6 feet apart. Your professors will then be able to advise you more specifically on the plan for attending their hybrid face-to-face classes. As I mentioned during the Returning Student Forum, for students taking hybrid classes in person, this may mean you sit in class on Monday, but on Wednesday, you take the course from your laptop in another location on campus. So one student expressed concern and asked a very good question about the availability of spaces on campus where students would be able to participate in their classes when not seated in the class due to the de-densification requirements. This is something we're also thinking about for our students. We will be going through all of the spaces that are not designated for classroom use, and will identify spaces that students can reserve for studying or for participating in class sessions remotely. In the warmer months, we will have tented outdoor spaces to help create additional space for studying. We will have both small spaces, for instance, rooms that are no longer sufficient for classroom use, given the de-densification requirements, and large spaces, the auditoriums, for instance, that will no longer be used for large gatherings. And these spaces will be repurposed for your use this fall. We will certainly be sharing this information with you when you're back on campus and we have more details. Another question, we had one student ask about grading and whether or not there would be a different grading curve for students taking a hybrid course online versus the students taking the course in person. Your professors will work hard to grade you fairly, and they expect you to act with integrity, regardless of the modality of coursework. I do want to point out here too, that in order to prepare you for what is expected, there will be a student onboarding course required of all students, new and returning. And included in the onboarding material is how to engage and how to be successful in an online and hybrid environment. That said, faculty intentionally design assessments, including exams, to assess students' learning and their ability to apply what they've learned in the class. Your faculty may choose to use systems such as Lockdown Browser, WebEx monitoring, Turnitin, or any number of mechanisms to encourage students to do their own work. As Ken mentioned, after a summer of extensive training, our faculty are now experts on how to develop a well-designed assessment that will make cheating very difficult. And when there is cause for concern, our Office of Community Standards works with faculty and students to ensure we maintain our ethical standards in the classroom. The next question pertains to how Babson faculty will incorporate the experiential and hands-on learning in the 100% online courses. While we may not be able to do everything the way it was done in the past, our faculty are creative and they can't help but figure out how to do this. They want to do this. They will use a range of experiential methods, including projects, simulations, and case studies to apply course concepts and to facilitate learning. As one example, last semester when our students in the McPhee program were forced to go online, and for our new students, McPhee is the management consulting field experience where students consult for nonprofit and for-profit organizations. These teams pivoted and prepared virtual presentations to company leaders that were incredibly well received. It's also worth noting that many of our faculty teach in both the graduate and undergraduate programs, and we've had blended online courses for many years in the graduate programs. So a good number of our faculty have extensive experience designing innovative and experiential learning opportunities across modalities. The last question I will address in this portion of the forum is related to the spring calendar and whether we have plans to adjust the start date in January or any other aspects of the calendar. And yes, we are looking into this right now and anticipate there will be changes to the spring calendar. We will be announcing these changes by the end of this month. I want to thank the students and family members again who took time to submit questions. I will be reaching out to those of you who asked a question that I didn't get a chance to answer in this forum. Thank you for your attention, and back to you, Larry.
Thank you, Tracy. Nice job. And just a reminder to all of our participants that this session is being recorded and will be available. So if you feel like a question was asked and you didn't quite get a chance to write the note down, you can always go back and view the recording on your own time. Now I want to shift to Josh Peacock, who's our Director of Residence Education and one of the all-time cool guys on campus. Josh is going to talk a little bit about the student life experience, including what it's like to be in the residence halls. Josh.
Great. Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you to all the students and the families that are taking time to meet with us today. We truly have enjoyed chatting with many of you over the last couple of weeks to understand the questions that you have and to help frame for you what life will be like on campus, especially in the residence halls. And so that's primarily what I'll be focusing on today, based on some themes and some questions that you all have submitted. So residence halls have always been and will remain a hub of student life at Babson. And we are committed to providing an experience that builds a sense of safety and belonging, which is directly in line with the mission of residence education. As we prepare for students to arrive in August, we are continually trying to balance student health and safety alongside social interaction, because as Larry mentioned, we know that's so important. At this time, we have identified common areas within most residence halls that the residential community can host other students to eat, study, and socialize with their peers. We are also evaluating the safest opportunities for students of the same residence halls to visit and socialize with fellow residents. Students can expect to see our residential policies evolve along with state guidance leading up to August and throughout the course of the semester. As shared in earlier forums, all residential students will be assigned to a household of no more than 9 residents to assist with contact tracing efforts. In most halls, each household will also be assigned a bathroom. They'll be assigned times to access the laundry rooms and participate in active and passive programming with their resident assistant or RA. In residence halls with semi-private bathrooms, students will still be assigned a household for laundry and programming purposes. Suite and roommate agreements will be drafted and reviewed with roommate and households to clearly outline shared expectations for community living, specifically focused on cleaning, use of shared spaces, and facial coverings in private locations. We've used roommate agreements and suite agreements for years in the past, and we've suggested them. Given all that's going on, we are strongly encouraging students to engage in that process, to complete the form, and to have these critical conversations with community members to keep all of us safe. One major theme that we heard that Tracy touched on a bit too is study space. And so it is a challenge that the college is actively planning, specifically in providing semi-private space in and out of the residence halls where students can study and participate in any required virtual learning. In addition to residential study rooms, we have identified and created gathering spaces across campus. Some of these spaces include the Park Manor West Innovation Space, which is open to all students, as is Night Auditorium, the library, and tented outdoor spaces that will be set up across campus. Planning for study and virtual class spaces is well underway as we prepare for August 24th, which is the first day of classes. In addition to the onboarding training required of all Babson students, residential students will participate in virtual and small in-person floor meetings with their RA to help orient the community to life in the residence halls, as well as to Babson broadly. I also want to strongly encourage students to look to their RA, to look to their area director, the professional staff that live in the community as resources to support you through navigating campus as you arrive and throughout the semester. All students, regardless of living on or off campus, will have the opportunity to participate in a small group campus tour prior to the start of class, to walk through the recreation and athletics complex, dining venues, the campus center, and classrooms to prepare you for the first day of class. Our first-year students will take part in these tours with their peer mentor groups during orientation, and so those are baked in for you when you arrive. All other students will learn more about signing up for a tour in early August. Understandably, we've also received a lot of questions about residential students leaving campus. So I want to make it clear, we have no intention of locking residential students on campus. We don't think that would benefit anyone. However, we do want to emphasize that Babson exists within the Wellesley community, and we do ask that students remain mindful of the impact of their behaviors on community members off campus as well as within the Babson community. We do expect students to wear a mask, practice regular hand hygiene, and observe physical distancing guidelines both on and off campus. We also ask residential students to use their best judgment when thinking about leaving campus and to prioritize what is truly necessary, such as going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, and attend work and internships when necessary. Another broad theme that we've heard about is off-campus students wondering what it will be like on campus for them. At this time, there are no restrictions for off-campus students in terms of resources and services. Commuter students are still an integral part of the Babson community. And as with our residential students, we expect off-campus students to wear a mask, practice regular hand washing hygiene, and observe physical distancing, regardless of where they are. Students living off campus will have access to the Babson Recreation and Athletics Complex, or BRAC, dining venues, study spaces, and can be guests in designated common spaces of the residence halls. We do ask that any student, whether you're living off campus or on campus, who is not feeling well or is exhibiting symptoms, to stay home and call health services for medical advice before returning or venturing back into campus. Understandably, we've also gotten a few questions about the meal plan, and we understand that food is an integral part of community life. The design of the fall meal plan intentionally focused on adding flexibility and value for students. Boost Bucks have replaced bonus meals and can be used at all dining venues in the Reynolds Campus Center and at Centennial Cafe. Students can use their meal plans across campus and order their food and beverages in advance to avoid waiting in lines. Students will also notice larger portion sizes at trim. And we definitely encourage students on a regular basis to check the dining website for updates on menus and updated guidelines and opportunities to dine in. I also think it's important to note that across the campus, across the college, we have made plans for fall that allow for nimble transition based on state guidance, which is absolutely the case with Babson dining. At this time, we are planning to open in phase 2 of our dining plan and will allow for some dine-in capacity starting September 6th. The final theme that I wanted to cover is around housing for spring 2021. Specifically, students who are living off campus are inquiring about the ability to live on campus in the spring. We have no way of predicting what the spring semester will look like, given that so much is unknown. However, we in housing and residence education will do all that we can to accommodate the demand for housing. If guidelines allow, we will look to re-densify our residential communities in the spring semester, and students can expect more information about spring 2021 housing early this fall. Before I turn it over, I did also want to give voice to the fact that I understand, given the work that I do in residence life, I deeply understand the impact of students' living spaces and campus life as it relates to your overall Babson experience. We are working day and night, literally day and night, to ensure your safety and to allow for as much community and interaction as is possible. We are so excited for your return, and we are counting on you, students, to use your best judgment, to follow the guidelines when you arrive and throughout the fall semester, so that we can remain together for the remainder of our time in the semester. Thank you so much for your questions. Keep them coming. We will continue to answer them, and I'll turn it back over to you, Larry.
Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you taking the time to outline those expectations. Now I want to turn it over to Ryan Travia. Ryan, you and your health and wellness team have been especially busy as part of our reopening planning. And so I wonder if you might take us through some of the questions and dynamics that you all have been focused on.
Most definitely, and thank you very much, Dean Ward, and thank you everyone for making time to join us today for this forum. I think the most common question that was raised in advance of this session had to do with the issues around self-quarantine. Specifically, will students be required to self-quarantine if arriving to campus from out of the country or from a state outside of New England, New York, or New Jersey? Self-quarantine is a period of observation to determine if any individuals who may have been exposed to COVID-19 develop symptoms. According to current guidance from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, any visitors coming to Babson from outside of New York, New Jersey, or New England states are in fact instructed to self-quarantine for 14 days. Students coming to study at Babson's Wellesley campus for the fall semester are expected to self-quarantine for 14 days prior to traveling to campus. Upon arrival, students will be asked to complete a form stating that they have in fact completed that 14-day self-quarantine prior to checking in. If they are unable or unwilling to complete this form, students will be moved to a quarantine space on campus. All students will be tested upon arrival to Babson and expected to report daily monitoring of symptoms through a tool specifically designed for our student community. In addition to our testing and monitoring strategies, residential students are expected to remain on campus for at least 14 days without taking any trips into the surrounding community. Then, as Josh suggested, following that, using your best judgment about when and how you're accessing off-campus resources. Dining will be takeaway only until September 6th. And as previously shared, all community members are required to wear a facial covering and at all times observe physical distancing guidelines. We also received many questions about the college's policies on quarantine and isolation more generally. So I thought it might be helpful to start off by defining those terms. Isolation is designated for individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19 and who may or may not have symptoms. Quarantine is designated for individuals who have been identified by trained contact tracers as having been in close contact with those who have tested positive for COVID-19 and who are asymptomatic. Close contact is defined as being within 6 feet of an individual for at least 15 minutes, regardless of wearing a facial covering. So if a student requires isolation or quarantine, we will work with the student and their family to determine if they can safely return home or to another off-campus location for the duration of their isolation or quarantine period. Rest assured, the college has set aside designated temporary housing for students who require isolation or quarantine, but who may not be able to return home during their monitoring and recovery time. Each of these students would be assigned a case manager, likely myself or Dean Capozzi. Health services will check in with students daily, and arrangements will be made for food service and laundry pickup. Students residing off campus would isolate or quarantine at their place of residence. We received many questions about what actually happens if you get sick and what you should do.
Hey, Ryan, before you jump to that, would you just offer a little bit of clarification on testing? So we have two different kinds of testing that will be part of our plans. So maybe just draw some of the distinctions, particularly our testing with the Broad Institute.
Yeah, most definitely. So we have contracted with the Broad Institute, which is a collaborative laboratory between Harvard and MIT, the home of the Human Genome Project. They've done a phenomenal job completely revamping their operation, over 100 scientists there. They're currently processing between 35,000 and 50,000 tests for COVID on a daily basis. We're very impressed with their operation and we'll be utilizing them for the bulk of our testing. As Dean Ward suggested, any students that are exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 or who have been identified by our trained contact tracers will be able to get tested in health services. However, we will be offering mass asymptomatic surveillance testing on a regular basis, and I'll cover that in more detail shortly, for all members of the Babson community on campus, including students, faculty, and staff. And that'll likely happen on a weekly basis. So again, if a student were to experience those symptoms, as we just spoke about, or as reported on the daily symptom tracker, they should contact health services immediately for a phone triage or to schedule an appointment. You should not attend class or any other meetings or events until cleared to do so by a medical professional. Symptomatic students and those again identified as close contacts of those who have tested positive can again get tested on campus at health services, and students' health insurance will be charged for the costs of those tests. We also received some questions about what happens if a roommate or perhaps a member of the family unit, as Josh was articulating, gets sick. Similarly, if a roommate gets sick or is experiencing symptoms of COVID, they should contact health services immediately for that phone triage and or to schedule an appointment. If your roommate does in fact test positive for COVID-19, you will also need to get tested and will be required to self-quarantine for 14 days. We will at that point activate the college's cleaning and disinfecting protocols of that particular room and associated living spaces. For students that are living off campus, if they get sick, this is really important. I want to remind everyone that all full-time students, regardless of whether they live on or off campus, are eligible for health services. So for those off-campus students, if you get sick, you can contact health services or your own primary care physician for consultation and medical advice, or you can seek care at an urgent care clinic or the emergency department for a more severe illness. And in addition to providing on-campus care, health services is also now set up to provide telehealth services for students who prefer to communicate with our provider via WebEx or phone. As we spoke about briefly before, we will continue to provide symptomatic testing for students who are exhibiting those indicators of COVID or who have been identified by our contact tracers, and mass asymptomatic surveillance testing for all community members. This is going to commence upon our collective re-entry to campus and will continue once a week until otherwise noted. The lab results, which we will send out to the Broad Institute on a daily basis, will be available to the ordering provider within 24 to 48 hours. This is a very quick turnaround compared to many of the other vendors that we were considering. Community members who test positive will be contacted by that provider. Details regarding testing location, days, specific times, and associated logistics will be released shortly. And then finally, Larry, I just wanted to touch briefly on what we call SHIP, the Student Health Insurance Plan. We received several questions about that policy. And I just wanted to reinforce for folks that students enrolled at the college who are registered for classes, but perhaps live out of state or out of the country, or may remain in one of those entities, are still required to demonstrate that they carry appropriate health insurance. All full-time students at the college are eligible to purchase Babson's student health insurance plan provided by Blue Cross Blue Shield again, regardless of whether they're residential or a commuter student or taking courses fully online. For those returning students who are currently covered by SHIP, as a reminder, your policy remains in effect through August 9th, and the effective dates of the upcoming policy year will start on August 10th, 2020, and will end on August 9th, 2021. Finally, if a student elects to start their courses in the spring semester, they will still have the option to purchase SHIP at that time. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and back to you, Larry.
Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it. Now I want to turn to Lorian, and I know there are a number of issues and questions and concerns and possibilities that are somewhat specific to international students here at Babson. So I know that you have been entertaining a number of questions, and I wonder if you might walk us through that.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Larry. I want to start by sharing, especially for our new students and families, that the Glavin Office of International Education supports all of Babson's global learning opportunities, including education abroad and international student services. And we look forward to working with many of you within the community for those global learning opportunities. Today, I wanted to specifically address some of the questions that we've been receiving as it relates to our international student population. I am aware that we have both new and returning students and families on the call, so I will try to specify when I'm sharing information relevant to one particular group or another, as the information differs a bit. So we have received a lot of questions, and understandably so, about the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's new guidance that was released on July 6th for the fall semester for all universities and colleges in the United States. This new immigration rule has caused a lot of stress and confusion for our international students, and so I don't blame you for having questions and concerns, and we continue to do our best to communicate the information to you and clarify the information. As the regulation stands now, Babson's hybrid learning model will allow continuing students who are able to return to the U.S. to maintain their immigration status as long as you are taking a full course load with at least one hybrid course. We recognize that for various reasons, students may not be able to return to the U.S. International students may not be able to return to the U.S., and this is where the new DHS rule becomes problematic. While of course you are still able to make your progress towards your academic your degree requirements for Babson online, you will no longer, with this new rule, you would no longer be able to maintain your immigration status if you cannot return to the U.S. for the fall semester. This has implications for your off-campus authorization eligibility, or also known as CPT or OPT. On July 7th, the Glavin office, the International Student Scholar Services team held a forum that goes into great detail of the implications of the new rule for returning international students, as well as the options that are available to you. And you can find that recording of the forum on the Babson Together Return to Campus webpage. So if you're a returning student, I would highly recommend you watching that forum if you have not already. For our first year students, the new regulation has less impact. If you come to Babson's campus, you will simply need to enroll in a full course load and take at least one hybrid course. If you decide to remain abroad and study with us online for the fall semester, your immigration status will start upon your arrival to the US in January. While this still has an impact on when you are eligible for your off-campus work authorization, there will be plenty of opportunities for internships in the US in your second, third, and fourth year. ISSS has been in touch with our incoming international students about how to request your Form I-20 to apply for your visa. As well, we will be utilizing the online orientation platform to communicate additional immigration information to you throughout the summer. Finally, I just want to stress before I move on to the next question that Babson opposes the new Department of Homeland Security rule. which adversely impacts our international students and essentially threatens global education as a whole. As Babson is part, and I want to just to reiterate that Babson is a part of overall efforts nationwide to advocate for more favorable regulations for international students amidst the pandemic. In fact, Massachusetts has led the nation in advocacy efforts against this new rule, and Babson has been a part of that alliance. And of course, if there are any changes to that regulation, we will be communicating those as soon as we know to our student population. Moving on, another question that we have received from our incoming international students is around your ability to secure a visa in time for the start of the fall semester. We are cautiously optimistic about the U.S. Department of State's recent announcement that the U.S. embassies and consulates may be beginning to offer routine visa services depending on the location depending on the conditions of the location on July 15th. Of course, this will vary country to country, and we recommend that international students closely monitor the consulate and embassy website for the status of their services. Babson has created a visa reporting tool on the ISSS webpage as well for students to keep us updated on their visa appointment information. However, if you are not able to secure an F1 student visa and arrive in the US for in-person classes prior to August 24th, you will be able to start your program remotely via online learning from outside of the US. The International Student Scholar Services team will be communicating with all incoming students during the summer about how to request emergency visa appointments and any possible late arrival dates based on COVID-19 allowances from the United States government. So keep an eye out for those, and many of those conversations will be happening individually as each individual student's situation is unique. We recognize that there are many variables that you and your families need to consider as you prepare for the fall semester. Rest assured that Babson is here to help you with the preparation for the fall every step of the way. Whether you come to Babson's campus this fall or study with us 100% online, our international students are an important part of our community, an integral part of our community. And by offering different modalities for our students to continue learning, we further amplify Babson as a global institution. Of course, if you have any questions about International Student Scholar Services, and I should say for study abroad questions as well, please do not hesitate to contact the Glavin office. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks so much, Lauren. Really appreciate it. And thanks to each of you. One particular population that we did not specifically address is our varsity athletes. And I want to just take a few moments as we wrap up to give you an update on that. So this Friday, July 17th, our primary athletic conference, which is NEWMAC, New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference, the Council of Presidents will be meeting for a final decision on a fall season. I have to say, I am not optimistic about a fall athletic season. If you look recently, our sister Division III conference in New England, the NESCAC, which is the New England Small Colleges Athletic Conference, recently made their decision not to offer a fall season. The Ivy League as well, which many of the higher end Division III athletic conferences patterned after the Ivy League have made a similar decision. And a couple of our in-conference schools have made a decision not to offer the fall. So while there is no final decision, hopefully until the end of this week, I'm not optimistic about a fall season. And that is incredibly painful to me, and I certainly know to our fall athletes and our fall athletic families. We will have a special athletics virtual forum when we have a final decision, led by Mike Lynch, who's our athletic director, and our coaches, to talk about athletics for the entire year, for fall athletes, to talk about substantive ways in which you can continue to participate and train as athletes. And so look to hear more from the athletic department. But I wanted to take this opportunity just to to preview what I expect to be coming at the end of the week.
Larry, just as an aside, a quick aside.
Yes, sir.
The NCAA is likely to maintain eligibility for those athletes that can't play in the fall, so you don't lose a season of eligibility.
Great, thank you. And I know, Steve, you'll be participating in those conversations with your colleague presidents at the end of the week. I'm so grateful for those who have taken the opportunity to be with us for this forum today. I really want to thank our panelists for your substantive questions. I hope that you all, as audience members, heard your questions being answered. If you continue to have questions, I want to make sure that you have the website babson.edu /together. That's where you can find our reopening plan. And that is a living document. So it is updated regularly. And that's the most recent information. Our primary email for questions is healthupdate2020@babson.edu. Or as Lorian and others have mentioned, for our returning students and new students, you have specific questions for a particular office or department, we are happy to address those questions, to set up a phone conversation or a virtual meeting to discuss specific issues. And so with that, I'm grateful, Ken and Josh and Lorian and Ryan and Tracy and President Spinelli, for your time and your insight. So thank you so much for joining us. We are absolutely looking forward to welcoming many of you here in the fall. Thank you for your time and have a good afternoon.